All right. Hey, folks. Welcome back to another episode of Painting with Victor Rigoli. I'm in the studio this afternoon. It's on a Monday in the fall in Georgia. It was cool this morning when I got up and went out around 8 o'clock and did some walking. I tried to do walking in the morning, get the juices flowing, that kind of thing. And trying to lose some weight, trying to get in better shape and that kind of thing, take better care of myself. But I wanted to talk a little bit about something that I think it's key to your improvement as an artist. Um, I think it's important for all of us artists to continue to grow and progress, and what I'll call green and growing, and that means you're always learning. You haven't really fully arrived at where you think you should be, but you're constantly in that state of trying to be better and trying to do better and getting better as an artist. I don't care if you've been painting for 20 years. There's probably something that you could improve on. I know I follow different artists, and they do that from time to time. They'll go take a watercolor class to maybe learn a new technique or something, and maybe hopefully incorporate that into their acrylic work or oil painting that they may be doing, just some techniques and stuff. And maybe it's just refreshing your memory or helping you to better understand color theory, color harmony, understanding the complementary colors and how to use them, and the triads and that kind of thing. And so I've had been taking some lessons here recently, and I'm going to put a plug in for this artist, this instructor, and I'll do that in just a second. But I went in this morning and had my little lesson. And one of the things I started off, wanting to get better at doing still lifes. Okay. And so I went to a couple classes, and I was had this still life that she had set up for me. And I call it hardcore. It wasn't something real soft, like go paint this apple or paint this pear or a couple of these little cherries and everything. I mean, this was, I'm going to post a picture of it as well somewhere. Try to post a picture of that still life. In fact, I might try to use it as the thumbnail. So we'll see. So you know what I'm talking about. I mean, it had a skull in there with some horns coming out. It had a little bottle, limited bottle. It had a little chest in the background. It had some cotton. So it was just kind of a hodgepodge of shapes and colors and stuff like that. And when I got there the first time, it was like, wow, let's just jump off into the deep end. She said, oh man, we don't play around. And that's true. And I did not complete that. In fact, I was just happened to think about it today. I left the work in progress down there at her studio this morning, which is fine. I'll try to get it later. But I came away and I was talking to her a little bit about this. I said, whether I continue to try to do some still lifes, which I am, I don't think I'll finish that one. But the thing that it taught me, the thing that I discovered is I've got to get better at drawing and sketching. Okay. And I recently purchased a portrait sketching course online, and it came with a downloadable PDF file, and so I was going through that, and there's instructional videos that you follow along too. And so you're looking at the structure of the face, and getting proportions down, and it follows the Loomis method, and dividing the face into thirds and that kind of thing, and where your eyebrows will be, and your nose, your chin, and all that, lips, and all that kind of stuff, and practicing that and drawing that out and sketching that out. But then it also went into things like, hey, let's focus on the eyes. Let's draw some eyes. Let's do a couple noses. How about the lips? Things like that. And so, you could draw for each little exercise that was in the PDF file. You could draw, had space where you could draw at least four examples or practice drawings of, maybe it was the eyes or maybe it was the nose or whatever. And I was working on that, and I continue to work on that. And it's really taught me a lot about how I need to improve my drawing skills. I used to be, back in my younger days in high school and probably in the early 80s, I could draw pretty well. I did some good drawings and everything, and but it takes a lot of practice. And I have to get back into the groove and really devote more time. So for a while there, I was really trying to devote time in the mornings, or at least some part of my day, doing some drawing and sketching. And so while we may want to accomplish something over here in our art journey, we might need to start, here. And so, there's a little path that we might need to take, and we have to recognize this, what is the underlying theme there that I need to work on and do. And maybe it's composition and that kind of thing, and arranging stuff on the canvas or on your painting surface or whatever. Because as artists, we just don't all of a sudden just, start slapping paint up on a canvas. Now, some artists do that because they're very creative, and it's just, what they're feeling and that kind of thing. And it's more of the style that's, foreign to me. But some are like that. They're very, very creative, and they just have this idea, and then boom, they just kind of run with it. I'm more methodical in the process and that kind of thing, because I do a lot of landscapes and marshlands and stuff like that. So I plan it out, and you got to get the composition down and all that kind of stuff. And so, but anyway, that whole process of wanting to get better and doing some still lifes taught me, and those lessons that I took taught me, I need to back up and I need to slow down a little bit. I need to slow down and practice on the drawing side and sketching in order to get to the point where, okay, I've got that. I'm doing, and I hope to get to a point where, hey, I'm back in that pretty good sketch drawing skill set. And then I can take that and apply that in doing a still life, whether I do a drawing of a still life, or I use the skills that I learned in doing the sketching of a still life in my painting. Okay, because you got to start with those shapes, whether it's a fruit bowl, or a bowl of fruit that you're working on, and has some apples and oranges and lemons and bananas or whatever. It's different shapes and sizes and everything. You got to get those shapes and sizes down. You want that pear to look like a pear, and that banana to look like a banana, and whatever else it is that you're trying to draw. And it's very critical when you're doing portraits. You want to make sure both eyes are appropriate size. You don't have left eye a whole much bigger than the right eye and that kind of thing. And you don't you want to make sure the nose is proportional, ears are in the right place, and all that kind of stuff. Especially, when it's time to start painting, because if you don't have those fundamentals down and that skill set down, in my opinion, you're not going to be very good at doing portraits. Okay. I don't care how good you are at mixing color, you can't compensate for the bad sketching or drawing and getting the proportions down. Okay. So that's what I mean by slow down a little bit, master those things and work on those things, because if you do, then you're going to be able to go faster later on, because that will kind of come natural to you, because you're able to do those kind of things because you took the time. And that was one thing that I was kind of talking with my wife a little bit this weekend. And, sometimes you get a little burnout, or sometimes you get down, a little depressed and that kind of thing. And I don't know if I was feeling sorry for myself or whatever it was, struggling there a little bit with, because I got so much stuff going on in the studio and so many things that I want to do. And I think I was getting a little overwhelmed. And because, as I was telling my art instructor, Beth Smith, and I'll put a plug in for her and Cornerstone Academy of Art and Design, and I'll tell you a little bit about that in just a minute. But I was talking to her a little bit about that sometimes I've had 4 or 5 paintings going at the same time, and she was kind of surprised. And I says, well, if I'm working on a series of golf holes, like I've just about to complete a series on Amen Corner 11, 12, and 13 at Augusta National at the Masters. And so I'm doing them all in a 10 by 20 size gallery wrapped canvas. And so I wanted my colors to, match as far as the color of the greens and the fairways and the trees and that kind of thing. Same time of season, all that kind of stuff. And so, I was working on 3 at one time. And so I've got 2 of them completed. I think I've got 11 completed and 13, and I'm about to get 12 finished up. And I've had to do it in different steps and phases. And the reason why is I got the background colors in to simulate trees and stuff like that. And then I've added some foliage to them and some highlights. But then there were some pine trees, being in Georgia and those Georgia pines. There were some pine trees that I had to add to that particular painting. And in front of those pine trees are, in a couple locations, are some dogwoods, some real pretty dogwoods, full bloom. But you can see the pine trees behind, they're kind of coming through, because dogwoods, as they've got clumps and branches with flowering blossoms on it and that kind of thing, in different places. And so it's just not this, kind of bushy thing. So thinking about that, I said, well, I want to get that in. So yeah, I might be working on 3 things at one time. And I've had more than that before. I've had like 5 going at one time, because I've had to maybe wait on a phase of that painting to dry. Maybe there was something I needed to dry before I started adding some highlights to it, because I didn't want to mix the colors together and then you get muddy and all that kind of stuff, and it just ruins it. So while I'm waiting for it to dry for maybe a couple of days, I'm not just going to sit around and, twiddle my thumbs. Let's work on something else. Let's get something else in the hopper going. And so that's just the way it is. It's multitasking. And I learned how to do that when I was in IT, and did that for, 40 something years when I was in IT, especially over the last, part of my career when I was in management and having to multitask in the various teams that I managed and the associates that I managed and that kind of thing. And so, yeah, you have to be able to multitask and keep a lot of things going and keep them on track to meet your deadlines and that kind of thing. And so that was a skill set that I acquired, and, it just kind of keeps me busy, but sometimes it can kind of burn you out a little bit. But the whole point of this video today is to encourage you to, if you want to get better, sometimes you need to slow down a little bit. Maybe you need to look back at what are the basics. Like today in my art lesson, I was meeting with Beth, and I talked to her. I met last week, and I worked on a couple of things related to the still life. And we talked about some stuff, because she's got a show coming up, and she was showing me some of the paintings that she was working on and one that she was trying to complete. And she did get it completed last week, and we talked about that one today. But I texted her a few days ago and said, hey, I really want to talk about color theory, color harmony, mixing paint, mixing colors, all that kind of stuff. And we spent a good hour and a half, almost 2 hours of doing that, just sitting there side by side, looking at some videos, talking about, and she did some demonstrations and stuff and using different colors and all that. And it was so helpful. But you got to slow down a little bit. So getting and understanding those fundamentals and basics, so that when you have that and you feel like you've kind of mastered it, do we ever master anything? I don't know, but you get close to mastering something like that. Once you get that down, then it's like, okay, I'm ready to go on to the next step. So when you are creating a painting, and let's use the example of, landscape painting, and I'm maybe using photo references and things like that, then I can look at that photo reference up on the computer screen, and whether I've enhanced the color a little bit, maybe I warmed it up, maybe I cooled it a little bit, whatever I've done to it, and then too, in talking with her as I was leaving, sometimes you have to use your imagination because a photo does not capture the true color of what you see with your eye out in nature. So you have to think about that. And sometimes you have to alter or adjust the color, because you know what it should be. And so understanding how to mix that paint, which colors to use and that kind of thing to get that color that you're looking for, is critical, because you can't just spend time and time and time and time and time trying to mix a color, and because you're gonna and you're not familiar with it, and the color theory and the color mixing and that kind of thing, and you're going to be making a lot of mud, and you're going to be wasting a lot of paint, and you're going to be spending a lot of time, and it's really going to slow down the process of actually painting and creating that art that you want to create. So here again, slow down a little bit, learn and master some of these fundamentals. Maybe it's composition, understanding how composition works and where your focal point is going to be on the canvas or painting surface. How are you going to lead the viewer's eye to that focal point? How are you going to use some complementary colors to bring out and make certain things pop that you want it to pop, to attract, the viewer to that area? She and I talked a little bit about sometimes you use some of the duller colors around, but then those things that you want the eye to focus on, you have some more vivid colors that kind of pop, and that attracts people to that. She shared with me an example of a painting that she was working on for a show that she's got coming up starting in October. And for those that are in the Middle Georgia area, it's going to be at 567 down on First Street, first Friday in October is going to be the opening, and so she'll have all her artwork there. So I encourage all you folks here in Middle Georgia to come out for that. But she showed me this painting that she did, and it was unique. I'm not going to share a whole lot about it, but she used certain colors because as people are kind of walking around, that would catch their eye. And once it catches your eye, then you're kind of led into the painting and what the focal point is and that kind of thing. And so that was really, really interesting. But anyway, just a quick little video here today, guys. Just wanted to share this with you. And, if there's something that you feel like you're struggling with that you need to work on, then take some time and work on it. Slow down, work on those things. And that's what I'm planning on doing now. I'm getting into what I'll call early Christmas season. And what I mean by that is I've got about 3 paintings. I've identified 3. I hope to do 3 for the holidays. Okay. And usually in the last 3 years, what I have done is I've painted a holiday theme painting picture, and we use that as our family Christmas card, and we take a good photo of it, upload it, to one of these card print on demand sites, and we make the Christmas cards and we send those out. It's got my signature on it, blah, blah, blah. Everybody, oh, wow. And believe it or not, I've sold several prints from the last couple of years of those 2 pieces of artwork that I did at Christmas. So I'm going to be working on some more, but I want to really take my time. And, when you think about it, I'm be working on 3 of them, and they're going to be pretty good size. I mean, one of them I've got right up here on this easel here. It's about I think 22 by 26 inch canvas on MDF board, and it's going to be a nice little Christmas scene. And we're going to put that one over our fireplace. And then I'm going to be working on a couple others that are probably going to be about a 20 by 20 size. Could be 16 by 16 or 18 by 18, but that size is a pretty good size. But I really want to take my time. So I've got to start early so they can be ready and dry and ready to be photographed and may turn into Christmas cards and things like that. So yeah, I have to slow down a little bit so I can speed up later on, and it's key. But let me just put a plug in here for Beth Smith and Cornerstone Academy of Art and Design. They are in Macon, Georgia. They are up on their studio is looking at the map here. It's at 1305 Hardeman Avenue. For those that are in Macon, that's behind the big post office there off of College Street. And it's next to the Brick, the pizza place up there. Beth, they teach lessons there on Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday at the Hardeman location. But she also does some classes down in Kathleen, Perry area on Mondays and Tuesdays. And so I was going, because I don't live too far from there. I'm about less than 4 miles away. And so I would meet her down there. And she has different students coming in on Mondays and Tuesdays. But I'm going to put her contact information in there. I'll have the phone number. I'll have her email contact. I'll have the address and all that kind of stuff. So you can go out there if you're interested. And she's a great teacher. One of the things that I said to her as I was leaving, I was packing up and I got to in my car and I said, you know, I do these podcasts. I do the Artist Stories of Middle Georgia podcast. And I said, you know, I really want to help her out, promote her, and her art instructors and that kind of thing. And so I said, well, let me go in there and just make sure it's okay that I do that. So I went in there and she said, did you forget something? I said, no, but I just want to let you know, as I do my podcast and as I talk to people and see people that might be interested in taking some art lessons, I'm going to put a plug in and, refer them to you. And she was very appreciative of that. So that's why I'm plugging her today. Not to say that this is brought to you by Cornerstone Academy of Art and Design. No paid endorsement or anything like that. But yeah, so please reach out to her if you're wanting to learn how to paint, acrylic or oil, watercolor, that kind of thing, drawing. I mean, she's got students that are just learning how to draw. They're doing some fabulous work there. Be sure to go check them out. Go to their website. Their website is easy to get to. You can just do a search on Cornerstone Academy of Art and Design and Google, and it will bring up, their website there. So, I just encourage you to go out and check out her studio. Let's see. I think that's about it for today, guys. Like I said, I'll have her contact information below. I'll have my contact information below, and the show notes are in the description. But if there is something you'd like for me to talk about, maybe, share with you some information, maybe some experience I've had, please leave me a comment below. I appreciate it if you like. Give me a thumbs up and like the content here and subscribe to the channel. Just as I said earlier, just be green and growing. I mean, if you're into starting to branch out and you've done some paintings and you want to get into a gallery, there's ways to do that. If you're in the Middle Georgia area, you're kind of limited as to what the number of galleries are. There are some other places, galleries that are on the upper scale, which you need to check into. There are different studios that you can get involved in and that kind of thing. Also, if you're looking for instruction, contact CAD. One thing that I liked about Beth, and I told her that, is her teaching style. It's not my way or no way. And I've been with other art instructors like that. And it's like, well, this is the way they do it, and this is how they've learned, and this is how you're supposed to do it. It's like, no, she teaches you fundamentals and techniques, and you be creative, and you create, and you do it the way you think it should be done, because it's you. It's your art. And that's the key thing, is to remember it's your art. And I had earlier this month, I went down to Macon Arts Alliance, plug in for them. Julie and Sierra and Maria there are wonderful people. I was standing there talking to a friend of mine, and this lady was showing him something on her phone, like some pictures or something, and she was asking him for advice. And he said, "I'm not an artist. Victor is. Ask him." And she asked me. But the thing that, the comment that I left with her is two things. She was showing me a painting, and I said, well, what's going on, and where's your focal point? And I said, because you've got this road that's kind of coming up and leading the eye here, but what is there? And she said, yeah, I probably need to add something and need to change that up. I said, right. And then she showed me another one, and she was asking me about it and that kind of thing. And there was something about the colors, and she said, well, that's the way the photo looked. And I said, well, this is your painting. You can paint it whatever color you want, within reason, and make it your own. It doesn't have to be just like the photo. In fact, I've got on my monitor over here close to my easel, I've got a monitor, a pretty good sized monitor, mounted on a pole, and at the bottom it says "Don't paint to the photo." So you know, it's your creation. Don't paint to exactly like the photo. You can change the colors, you can add things to it, you can take away from it, that kind of thing. But anyway, guys, thanks for tuning in. Hope you have a great afternoon, a great day, wherever you're at, and just keep on painting, keep on learning, keep on growing, be green and growing, and striving to just get better every day. And we'll see you guys in the next video. Take care, everybody.